This is USVI News, your Virgin Islands connection.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for USVI News. I'm Emily Matson. Police in St. Croix have arrested an 18-year-old and have charged him with attempted murder. Tyreek Paris is facing several charges, including attempted murder and weapons charges. Police say back on November 15th of last year, they responded to a call of shots fired around 9:30 p.m. in the area of the Barron Spot Village Mall. Detectives learned there was an argument at the Super Tank Service Station in Estate Diamond Ruby with two victims and Mr. Paris. The victims told police they got into the car and left to avoid further confrontation, but police say that's when Paris pursued them in his vehicle and opened fire as they drove near the mall. Paris is in jail under a $100,000 bond. Also on St. Croix, an 18-year-old is arrested and charged with an armed carjacking. Police say Isaac Frontal is facing charges. He's charged with stealing a scooter at gunpoint during a string of crimes last summer. Police say his arrest stems from a series of robberies on July 31st of last year, including an elderly woman who was carjacked in Estate White Lady. Later in the day, police say the suspects tried to rob several people at gunpoint using that woman's stolen vehicle, as well as robbing a couple of businesses and a scooter from someone. Police spotted a man driving that stolen scooter, and through tips and a thorough investigation, police say they determined Frontal was the man driving that stolen scooter. And a minor is charged as an adult with armed carjacking, robbery, and theft. 17-year-old Nasiah Caldron is facing several charges, including robbery, grand larceny, and assault. Back on April 13th at 11:30 at night, 911 got called to a robbery in the area of Angels Bar 2 in Frederickstead. The victim told officers while in his car when he left the bar, two young men approached him, pointed a handgun at his head, then pressed it on his chest and demanded his car keys. The suspect grabbed his keys and phone, then jumped into his vehicle and drove off, according to that victim. Police later recovered the vehicle, which had been repainted. The victim was able to identify the suspect as Caldron, as one of the men who robbed him at gunpoint. Last month, Caldron was arrested and placed in a youth rehabilitation center, but this week, the Attorney General filed a motion to transfer the case to adult court, a request a judge granted. Continuing coverage now on the sentencing of Ghislaine Maxwell. As we reported, a judge sentenced her in a Manhattan federal court Tuesday for helping Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse underage girls between 1994 and 2004. She helped supply young women for Epstein to abuse out of residential properties he owned in Paris, Florida, New York, and the Virgin Islands. The former British socialite had an opportunity to make a statement to the judge on Tuesday, and so did some of the victims. Trinity Chavez reports.
Survivors arrived at the Manhattan Federal Courthouse to face Ghislaine Maxwell and tell the court how her abuse impacted them.
Just to have my voice and for Ghislaine to hear what I have to say is liberating.
Tuesday, a judge sentenced the former British socialite to 20 years in prison for helping her longtime confidant Jeffrey Epstein abuse girls as young as 14. Among them, Annie Farmer, who told the court Maxwell at one point fondled her breasts at Epstein's New Mexico ranch.
Maxwell and Epstein were predators who were able to use that power and privilege to harm countless individuals.
The victims in this case urged the court to consider their ongoing suffering and Maxwell's crucial role in Epstein's sex trafficking ring.
Today showed us that individuals can be held accountable irrespective of power and privilege.
Maxwell delivered her own statement, saying she empathized with the victims, adding that Epstein fooled all of those in his orbit.
Her statement felt like a very hollow apology to me. She did not take responsibility for the crimes that she committed.
Her attorneys argued the 60-year-old only became a target when Epstein died by suicide while awaiting trial in 2019.
She has been incredibly strong to endure the daily vilification and mistreatment.
Maxwell's team had asked she serve roughly 5 years in prison.
The judge also ordered Maxwell to pay $750,000 in fines. Abortion rights supporters are moving their protests from the Supreme Court to the homes of Supreme Court justices. Our USVI News Washington, D.C. correspondent Rachel Knapp followed one protest this week outside of the home of Justice Samuel Alito.
If we don't get it, shut it down! In a quiet neighborhood in Alexandria, Virginia, abortion rights supporters are making their voices heard.
People just want to express their anger, their devastation of the overturn of Roe versus Wade.
Last week's ruling ignited protests from coast to coast. Now abortion rights supporters are taking the protests from the Supreme Court to the homes of Supreme Court justices.
The group of protesters keep marching down the street, trying to pass by Justice Samuel Alito's home several times.
Outside of this march, protesters plan to march in front of the homes of the 4 justices who agreed with Alito in overturning Roe, which include Justices Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett.
No privacy for us, no peace for you!
After the draft decision was leaked back in May and a man was charged for attempted murder of Justice Kavanaugh, Congress voted to increase security at their homes. And at this protest, law enforcement officials lined up outside. Protesters tell me they think it's right to protest outside justices' homes.
Direct action is more effective than just standing in front of the Supreme Court. I think protest is meaningful no matter what form of protest you choose, but I highly encourage you find ways to take direct action, whether that be going to Senate office buildings, going straight to Congress, going straight to the White House.
A couple of Alito's neighbors who didn't want to go on camera tell me they support the march. Another, who also says they support the abortion rights protest, says they just don't like some of the foul language used in some chants, including on some signs, because there's kids in the neighborhood. Despite this ruling, protesters tell me they'll continue fighting for abortion rights. In Alexandria, Virginia, Rachel Knapp reporting.
This week is Freedom Week in the Virgin Islands. It kicked off Sunday and it runs through the weekend. It's, of course, the week Virgin Islanders celebrate Emancipation Day and Independence Day. So several events are happening throughout the territory in celebration. The Department of Planning and Natural Resources is hosting an art show titled "The Revolution is Not a One-Time Act." It opens this Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. at Fort Frederick in St. Croix and runs through September 23rd. The VI Folk Life Festival, also on St. Croix, will celebrate Virgin Islands culture, history, and traditions. And this Friday, VI Governor Albert Bryan Jr. is poised to make a major announcement about plans to commemorate the 175th anniversary of Emancipation Day, which is on July 3rd of next year. So stay tuned to USVI News. We'll keep you posted on that announcement this coming Friday. COVID-19 cases remain steady territory-wide, although we are seeing a bit of a spike throughout the week as we hit midweek. Health officials are currently tracking 226 active COVID cases territory-wide, with 168 currently on St. Croix, 53 on St. Thomas, and still 5 on St. John. Summers around the world are getting hotter, a lot hotter, and scientists say climate change is to blame. And a new study says it's also no coincidence extreme weather events are on the rise. Ian Lee reports from London.
The mercury is rising around the world. Japan is suffering its worst heat wave in 150 years, with Tokyo sizzling under scorching temperatures topping 96 degrees.
Worldwide, people are worried about this whole climate change situation.
Scientists say climate change is the culprit for the wild weather.
All heat waves across the world have been made more intense and more likely by climate change.
A new global study reveals heat waves are increasing in severity and frequency. In April, temperatures in India soared above 120 degrees.
We have heat waves in Europe, and we have heat waves in Saudi Arabia at the moment. We have heat waves in China right now. We have heat waves in the US.
And it's not just extreme heat. Climate change is also triggering disastrous downpours. The worst flooding in more than a century is hitting Bangladesh, killing dozens.
But we have seen across the world a lot of serious and very damaging floods become more likely due to climate change.
The U.S. hasn't been spared either, with extreme heat and drought fueling massive wildfires in parts of the country and historic flooding swamping Yellowstone earlier this month. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
G7 leaders are currently meeting in Germany this week and have agreed to create a climate club by the end of the year for nations looking to take more ambitious action to tackle global warming. The 4th of July is always a big day for barbecues and fun and, of course, fireworks. But as you enjoy the holiday weekend, make sure you take care of your pets who might not be as excited about it as you are. Here are some easy ways to make sure they stay safe and comfortable.
If you're planning on hosting a backyard barbecue, or maybe you live in a neighborhood that's known for setting off fireworks, Best Friends Animal Society, a national animal welfare organization, has some tips to keeping your furry family members safe. First, make sure you bring your animals inside when fireworks start going off in your neighborhood. Put them in a secure room with comforting toys, and put on the TV or play music to help drown out the sound from outside. Consider a thunder shirt, which applies gentle pressure around a pet's torso. It can help with anxiety and stress. If you're going to give them medication, make sure it's prescribed by a vet and pay close attention to the dosage. Don't play with things like sparklers around your pets. Not only can they get burned, they are toxic if ingested. Also, always keep alcohol and any other harmful human foods out of reach of your pets. Before the festivities begin, double check that your pet is wearing their collar and identification tags with your contact information in case they get out. And finally, if Fido does get out, make sure you have a plan in place that includes using social media and checking local shelters to find them. Being prepared this holiday weekend can go a long way in making sure everyone in your family has a good time.
Just some reminders as we approach a big celebratory weekend in the Virgin Islands.